as they head out to Detroit to take on the Tigers, and of course battling for a wild card, a division lead. Certainly going to see the Red Sox next week. Plenty of baseball left, but it's football season around here. It is a purple week. The Buffalo Bills coming in with Rex Ryan, Tyrod Taylor, Corey Graham, and a bunch of old friends with some gold jewelry that says Ravens on it in the family. This guy's up in Rochester where the Baltimore Orioles used to have an outpost for many, many years until Peter Angelo's pissed everybody off there, and they ran out on it 10 years ago. Mike Catalana's been doing it for 29 glorious years in Rochester, or as Jimmy Jackson would say, Rottenchester, but that was just about the Amerks and Jody Gage, Mike. That was just a hockey thing back in the 80s. We welcome Mike Catalana, the sports selector at 13 Wham. That's WHAM. I saw WHAM. They call it Wham, like George Michael. He is in charge of staff of a talented sports journalist with some humor and some fun up there. Is also on the Bills TV group now, 17 years of that, so he's seen a lot of bad football there. We welcome Mike back onto the program. Is this a bad Bills team or a good Bills team? What do you know, Mike?
Well, the problem has been during that 17-year period that they haven't made the playoffs is that they're always about the same. They're, sometimes people, if they don't pay as much attention, the Bills are this, the Bills. I'm like, no, the problem is the Bills are perennially mediocre. They are right in that 6, 7, 8 win range all the time. Last year, 8 wins again, and they're always that team. And, when you're that team, you usually don't end up getting the high draft pick and getting the quarterback. You usually don't make the playoffs. And in their case, they haven't really done either. So that's why they're so hopeful that your former guy, Tyrod, becomes the guy here in Buffalo.
Well, I think if anybody goes out and follows you on Twitter at 13 WHAM, you can follow Mike at Mike Catalana. That's Catalana. There's a wonderful Twitter shot of you on the sideline with a microphone in front of Tyrod. And he's wearing a floppy hat. Everyone here liked Tyrod. I think it's impossible to not like Tyrod. He visited us at the Super Bowl out in San Francisco. He was walking by. Nobody even recognized him. He's very under radar. He's not one of those outsized guys. He doesn't even have sort of that outsized personality. He's kind of a humble, quiet cat who walks the earth. It was great to see him have success because he is so well-liked. But then there's that step up where the organization has made an incredible commitment. Rex has hung his hat on him at this point, and he is sort of coming into his own. They're going to go as he goes. If he's really good, they're probably going to be really good.
Yeah, I think he's the difference between them being an average team and a team that challenges, and you can even say this year with Brady out 4 games, you can say challenges for the division title, because I think they can be there. Tyrod was good last year. He showed some real flashes, and he certainly showed the ability to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. But as you know, following the league, it's like, there's starting guys, and then there's the guy. And I think Tyrod has shown, we know he can do that. He showed that last year. He can start in this league. He can perform in this league. He can win games in this league. He had a winning record last year. They were 8-8. He was 8-6 as a quarterback. And, so you've seen that. But there's definitely room for improvement. But I'm talking to people in Baltimore. Well, he didn't play in Baltimore. He stood there and watched. So as a player, even though he got that experience being behind Flacco and being at practice and all those things that he did, it was almost like it was his rookie year last year. It was the first time he had meaningful snaps in the NFL.
Yeah, until you do it, you can't do it. You're just a mite, right? Last year let us believe he's an is or very well could be, right?
Right, exactly. So they're kind of looking at it with a lot of hope. Now, did they make a commitment? Absolutely. But it's, I say it's a marriage with a prenup because it's a guy that they can get out of the deal after this year if he doesn't perform for one reason or another. But honestly, I think they're pretty confident that he's going to have a good year for them, and they've built everything around. Last year, he went with the 3-quarterback thing in camp, and he won the competition. You look at who he was against, E.J. Manuel and Matt Castle. Now looking back, you say, well, no wonder he won it. But he did have to come in there and prove it. And now this year, I think they have pretty high hopes for him.
What do you love about his game, having watched so many, not to disparage E.J. Manuel, but him and everybody before him? You can Ryan Fitzpatrick, you can go right through the list of all the guys. What makes him special in your mind that in 2019 he's still going to be there and they're going to have a playoff berth sometime between now and then?
I think he has the tools to play. Now, he's not your ideal size for a quarterback, but we have seen guys that are on the smaller side succeed. I look at him and I think his demeanor actually helps him a little bit. I think he's always pretty even keel, and that is his personality. I think that helps him. But he does have a strong enough arm. He throws a very good deep ball, at least he has when it's Sammy Watkins chasing the ball down. And I think he's a smart kid. I think he learned a lot in those 4 years, watching from the sidelines, preparing like you do. And he's got a chip on his shoulder. I don't think there's any doubt he does. That wasn't anybody's fault that he wasn't playing. He knew Flacco was the guy. It's not like he came to Buffalo and said, I should have been the starter. He knew his place, but, he was always overlooked. He's never really thought of that much around the league. I mean, most fans didn't even know who Flacco's backup was in Baltimore, unless you're in Baltimore. And so he comes here thinking, nobody's ever thought that much of me, and I have a lot to prove. But it's a very internal thing with him, and I think that demeanor will help him. He doesn't get rattled by anything. I'm sure privately he does, but publicly he doesn't, never on the field. And I think he's definitely earned the respect of his teammates.
Well, he's the leader there now, right? I mean, he came from, 3-horse race last year and the backup to the backup quarterback and, a forgotten guy to being, he's on the front of the stadium now, and if they're going to win, it's going to be because of him. And I guess for Shady and for some of the other guys, Kyle Williams that have been around there that have had some attention, the attention's going to come to him for better or for worse, right?
And, when you're around NFL teams, you got to prove it to them. They need, if it's a rookie, you look at, Carson Wentz or Zach Prescott, one of these guys playing. Well, they know why they're in there, whether it's just because of injury or because of the fact they were a high draft pick. And it's going to take a little while for the veterans to buy in. Well, they bought in on Tyrod, and they're all in with saying, hey, he's earned it. You talk to them, and I got a chance a lot of times to ask them about him, and they talk about his work. They talk about how much faith they have in him. And Rex did a thing this year where, he was allowing veteran players to hold sort of players-only position meetings during camp for an hour, a little free time, and they would get together as the defense, get together as the defensive backs, get together as the offense. And it was Tyrod running those meetings for the offense. And you'd say, well, of course it should be. He's the quarterback. He's not the most vocal guy in the world, but he wanted to do it. He suggested it. And I think that's a big step for him. And they're following him. I mean, they definitely are following him, which, he showed it on the field, and now I think he's coming around personality-wise a little bit more, too.
Mike Catalana back here on WNST from 13 Wham and Fox Rochester, the sports director there, as well as on the Bills TV sideline. You can follow him out on Twitter, Mike Catalana. That's Catalana. Now 29 years in Rochester, and for the Bills and being that perennial 6, 7, 8 win team, and not being able to make that next step, part of Rex coming in and bringing the big personality, way different than the Ralph Wilson era of sort of the next in line behind Marv Levy and a bunch of quiet, studious, maybe internally ball coaches, but Rex comes in with all the brash and all of that. Hey, how is that a year later in Buffalo after a year where things didn't change all that much last year other than, maybe they are a little louder with Rex there?
Yeah, we had Doug Marrone here for 2 years. Bit of a surprise hire, he was Syracuse head coach. First year, it went pretty well in the way he was. Second year, they won games, but Marrone was a different kind of personality. He became more and more introverted when he came in. The defense was good because he had Jim Schwartz running his defense, and then he decides, he's got this out in his contract and he bolts. Well, probably wasn't the brightest move in the world for a guy like Doug Marrone because, he's an offensive line coach in Jacksonville and hasn't gotten a head coaching job. So you get Rex comes in, bluster, basically saying, yeah, your defense was good, but I'm going to make it great. And he failed miserably last year. I think he did. I think it was just a bad system. He didn't take advantage of the guys he had there. And you went from having one of the best defenses in the league to one that was marginal to poor most of the year. And I think Rex was humbled last year. And I know probably for people around the league, be like, not Rex humbled. I think he believes in his system, but I think he knows he screwed up last year. And he came in this year, and they let him bring his brother in, and he's got Ed Reed in there helping with the secondary, and he's got guys who know his system, and he's gotten the guys to buy in. And he's still Rex being Rex. I mean, this week at the news conference, at the end of it, he calls up a video shot, and he's got a shot of his son making a big play for Clemson in a football game. I mean, that's Rex being Rex because he wants, have a little fun. That's fine. I think he's toned the bluster down a little bit because he got burned a little bit last year because he didn't back it up.
Well, there was a recruitment of the community that his father found to be important in Philadelphia and in Phoenix, and certainly he found important to be on the back page in New York for better and a lot of cases for worse. In Buffalo, where it was kind of sleepy and people are looking to get drunk in the parking lot and get all riled up and win football games, I think it sold well there for the brand and for what they were trying to do. But to your point, then you have to go out and win 10 games.
Yeah, and again, we're not talking about some team that was 3-13 and they were a little better. I mean, their defense was good the year before. And if they would have gotten good quarterback play, I mean, they had Kyle Orton playing, and they won enough games to be mediocre again, but the defense really kept it in check. If they would have had that kind of defensive play last year, they would have made the playoffs last year. But he failed with the defense. And they'll tell you, all the players will say, communication off the charts better this year. I think Rex changed some things. I think the players bought in more. And they sent Mario Williams out the door. And Mario is a very talented guy, but he was a disruptive player in the locker room, not vocally, but he didn't buy into what they were doing. And so there were a lot of people in the organization that weren't too upset to see him go. They let him go, and he's now with Miami. And, maybe he'll have a big year there. I don't know. But I think that was a big problem, and Rex didn't use him well. He didn't buy in, and it was never a positive influence in the locker room. They don't have that this year other than Marcel Darius sitting out the first 4 games with his suspension. They have everybody buying in. Now it's a question of, do they have the players to get it done?
Well, we can talk Bills, and I'm sure we will again before it's all over with. But I got to ask you this because I'm a Baltimore guy here. I'm the guy that 10 years ago led the walkout on Angelos here, and I know you covered large stretches of the Rochester baseball team, the Red Wings, and the Orioles, and I think you even made sort of a flippant comment last time you were on the program about it. And now they've moved on and went to Minnesota, some other places. It is interesting that our stadium is now empty. And I took phone calls from across the river there from Toronto last week, sort of laughing at Baltimore and saying, where are all the fans down there? Don't they realize they have a good baseball team? It really is sort of chickens coming to roost or whatever that expression would be. And I'm writing about it a little bit here, but mismanagement, doesn't even extend here. Kind of screwed up Rochester for a number of years, didn't it?
Yeah, they didn't really know what they were getting when it came to the Orioles. And they never were consistent. And plus, then you had the other issues. It wasn't all Angelos' fault, but the times the team would come here for that back in the day, when they would come here for that one-day visit and come and play against the minor league team, it was sort of an old tradition. It wasn't just that the players didn't buy into the whole thing. It was sort of disrespectful the way everything was handled, and no one stood up like an adult and said, look, if we're going to do this, do it right. The one year where the players wore just like their batting practice jerseys and, things like that would happen. And these were the days, obviously, Cal was still here, and he's still immensely popular in Rochester, as he is in most places. So there wasn't that feeling of a connection with the Orioles. They started to lose that. Now, they've had the Twins. They had a good year this year, really good year. They won 80 games in the minors, and they're not going to make the playoffs. But there still are a lot of people who miss the Orioles days here because they had, you go back to the Joe Altobelli days and back when Gritch and Baylor and those guys were here. There still is a feeling for that, but it's been a decade plus now, and they just re-upped with the Twins again.
Well, yeah, and we miss the old days of the Orioles here too, Mike. Even when they're winning, it's a real tragedy. They're winning and no one cares, and that should be the real. That should be a real problem for the community, but it's not. It's football season. We got the Bills coming into town. Hey, it's great having you on. As always, we'll send everybody out to 13 Wham as well as at Mike Catalana out on Twitter. Appreciate the time as always. We'll see you on Sunday.
All right, sounds good.
Looking forward to it. Mike Catalana there, the sports director in Rochester, New York. And we had a little Rochester Amherst, Baltimore Skipjacks battles. Feels like yesterday, but it was 30 years ago now, dating me as I am. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports. enough fighting for playoff positioning, but it is the Purple Kingdom here this week, and here comes the red, the white, and the blue, and Rex Ryan as well as Tyrod Taylor, Ed Reed, and Corey